Hey everybody, James here. This is an all new episode of the Tuner Layer podcast with James and Zach. I've been holding on to this one for a couple of weeks now because I wanted to get our introductory episode out, which we did, and it is over on Spotify and Apple Podcast. So if you haven't already, go over there, like, follow, give us a rating, review, all that. We'd appreciate it. And give that first episode a listen. It was really fun to do. But that being said, I've been holding on to this next episode for a couple of weeks now, and I'm really excited to finally be able to get to put it out because I got the chance to sit down remotely with my all-time favorite musician, artist, singer-songwriter, whatever you want to call him, just all-around good dude, Cory Branan, and do an hour-long interview with him. And so that's this episode that you're going to hear or watch. And of course, you know, if you haven't already, go over. We have a new YouTube channel. You can find us at Tuner or Later. But yeah, this is really fun. I had a really great time with it. We talked about his new record. We talked about his recording process, how he writes and records. And we talked about inspirations. And we talked about some stuff he's got coming up. And man, it was just really fun. Chat with Cory. So it was a little bit of a dream come true. I hope to be able to do it again when his new record comes out, maybe, and maybe even do it in person. You never know. But yeah, so that's what you're going to hear now. So I appreciate everybody for watching and listening, and I hope you all enjoy. All right, everybody. James here. I've got a special guest. I'm joined by Cory Branan, one and only, one of my all-time favorite musicians.
Oh man! Shit!
Yeah, took the time out of his busy schedule to talk to me for a little bit, man. So Cory, how's it going?
It's doing all right, all things considered. Yeah. There's I'm here in Nashville now, and so there's a big festival going on right now, the Americana Festival, and I'm
Yep.
doing my best to avoid it. I'm trying to stay in the house, but I've had to go out and make the rounds and see some buddies. I only played like one gig for it, but it's kind of a clusterfuck, so I try to avoid it.
Yeah. No, so I just thought it'd be cool to talk a little bit about. I kind of know I've listened to interview after interview with you about kind of how you started in music and all that kind of stuff. So I honestly kind of want to stay away from
That's fine by me.
from that. I want to talk about the music itself. I want to talk about the records. I want to talk about. I think you're doing something currently, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm right in the middle of one. It's a bit of a stop-start affair. I'll never do another record like this again. I was just like trying to do it casual and get in. Like, I don't know, a buddy of mine has a studio right here in the neighborhood, and he's great. But just sort of getting in on whatever time he had. Just when he's not doing other sessions. And so I was
Right.
like, that's fine. I'll stretch it out over a few months and just get in here and there. Bad idea. It's a bad idea. Because I just, I'm Irish. I can't let things go. I like
Sure.
once I'm working on, but I didn't know like exactly
Yeah.
because I've always gone in and just knocked records out. If
Yeah.
there was a break, it was because it was in between recording everything and then making a little break before mixing.
Right.
Or there were a couple of times when I've made the mistake of having recording records during shifting seasons, and I get I get like allergies or something. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I
Right.
can't sing on this thing yet. So I've had little pauses like that, but never anything like this. I mean, it'll
Yeah.
be like we started maybe 2 months ago. We knocked out all the drum and bass and like the rhythm section in like 2 days, like for all of it, and then nothing for a while, and then it was like 3 weeks, and I got back in with an accordion player where I wanted to, and then another few weeks, and I got back in with the piano player I wanted. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go over to Eric Slick, who played Eric, who's played with everybody, but like was drummer for Dr. Dog and stuff. I'm gonna go over to his place tomorrow and we get some percussion on there, but Yeah, it's going slow and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, something as simple as like mowing the yard, I have to get it started and finish it.
Well,
So I can't
yeah,
even imagine something like that, you know?
yeah, yeah. The thing that you described, I haven't had. I've been doing this for I don't know, professionally, I guess for almost 25 years, or yeah, and next year it'll be 25 years, and I've had the only sort of real job I've had since then was when I lived in Fayetteville, Arkansas for a couple of years. My buddy was a contractor, and he didn't need me. He was like, but when you're off the road, he's like, I'll just take on extra work, and then you'll have work. So it was
Sure.
great because of the thing you just mentioned. Most projects have a beginning, a middle, and end, and it's so
Absolutely.
satisfying. Music is not like that at all. It's so nebulous. Maybe writing a song as a beginning, middle, and end, but then you got to go in and you're going to record it. It's like, okay, well, you got to get that done. So you go in and record the thing. Then you got to mix the thing. Then you got to master the thing, and then you got to give it the label. And then 6 months later, after they've got the vinyl press stuff that comes out. So from the conception of this thing until it actually being a tangible thing that you can give someone, like
Right.
here's the thing. Uh, it's yeah, it would be like mowing the lawn and just spreading it out over like
Ugh,
a year and a half.
God,
It's like
that sounds frustrating. But I mean,
don't
it's
get me
got to be
wrong,
like awesome at the end of it though, right?
it feels great. Yeah, if every album feels like I give birth to quintuplets or something. It's
Yeah.
probably as close as a man's going to get to knowing the audio. Don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as close to
No.
but it's a hassle. But don't get me wrong. I mean, this is it's what I've chosen, and
Right.
as far as careers go, yeah, it's worth the hassle.
Yeah.
Um,
Bes-
you know.
So besides this record kind of being a little difficult to with the whole timing and everything, has it gotten easier since the first record?
Yeah, sometimes I mean, like the last one I did, man, it was the easiest record I ever made. It was fantastic. I don't know if it was because we were coming out of uh, like the lockdowns and things like that, and everybody was excited to be
Right.
working. I don't know if it was during speaking of like the pandemic or whatever, during that, I had so much extra time that I taught myself. Well, hey, I was freaking out. I was like, oh crap. At the time I was like, oh, this might be 9 months without work. And it turned out it's
Yeah.
2 years without work. And
Ugh.
so, and I got kids and I was like, holy crap, what do I do? And so during that time, I would do like commission tunes from people, like cover
Right.
tunes. And so anything they ask, I'll cover it, and then I would take the ones that I liked out of that and then put them out to fan direct albums, Quarantunes or something. Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
what. Yeah, so there were like five of those albums, but I taught myself to mix and record and master at the house, and it was something that I had avoided for years in the studio because I can be a little obsessive and you know you
Sure.
I ask what the one knob does and I want to know what every knob does and I
Absolutely.
stayed away from that aspect of it. But since I taught myself that during I went deep in the rabbit hole. I contacted every mixer and engineer I knew. Man was like, give me your cheat sheets, your
Right.
like give me the science. I want the frequency specific per instrument problematic zones. I want your principles that you go by. And in the end, all the stuff that it was actually Paul Ebersol that pretty much taught me how to mix and stuff like that. And he's just like subtractive EQ. He's just like never add EQ, take away. You can take away the things you don't like, and it'll leave the thing you like there. You don't have to
Mm.
make that thing poke. You take stuff away, and he's like, and don't listen to the tracks in isolation. He's like, too much. Sometimes you have to listen and zero out a guitar. He's like, but that guitar doesn't matter. It's matters how it sits with everything else. He's like some of the best guitar sounds you'll ever hear if you isolated them. Then he actually showed me. He had all of the stems from Bohemian Rhapsody, and
Okay.
he pulled out the guitars in the solos, because he stacks things sometimes, and the guitars, and he played it. And I'm like, holy shit, that's the ugliest sound I've ever heard in my life. It was like a razor thin band of mid frequency, just a little thing.
Sure.
and it's exactly what it needed for the mix, and it has all the character of those guitars. That's kind of his tone anyway. He has a very mid forward tone, but it's perfect in the mix. You would
Right.
never want to hear that sound outside of a
Right.
mix. You know, it's like
Yeah.
holy crap, it's so small and just snotty, but it's perfect. It's perfect. And
Yeah.
so I was like, okay, and so I tried to learn those lessons, and then I was but sorry, I chased rabbits. But I think maybe that helped the last record be go down so easy because I wasn't talking to the engineer and saying, all these musician adjectives like I want it sparkly or I want it,
Right.
I could be like, a little boost, 10K above. I could speak a little bit of the nerd
Sure.
frequencies. That or it could have easily been the musicians. Slick was on kit. Robbie Crowell was on bass. Robbie's my buddy's out. He's got the new Sturgill gig with the Johnny Blue Skies. He's out there with him. And let's see who else. I just had killer musicians and the engineer slash producer Jeremy Ferguson was just amazing. So we didn't. It was almost like we were siblings, like we had some sort of
Hell yeah.
like twins, some sort of weird
Yeah.
communication without words. So yeah, it was great. And this one I'm working with my buddy Anthony Costa, who's also fantastic. So the only thing, so it's going well. It's just not going enough.
Sure.
So yeah.
Right.
So
You had some crazy people come on and join you on that last record. Jason Isbell, who Brian Fallon. Like,
yeah. I just saw
how
Brian
was
this
that,
year.
man?
But yeah, ever since record one, I've just always had my friends on the records, and I've just been doing this so long that luckily, I happen to be friends with just insanely talented people,
Yeah.
and I try to only get people on, when I hear them on a song, to where I find a place where they could shine, not just to sort of be. I mean, I like to hang and all that. That's great. It's
Sure.
like my favorite part. But I try to give people. I'm like, oh, I hear this, and so, and of course, the problem is like with somebody like Isbell is like because Jason was on, he played on like my that
Yeah.
one other record, but the problem with Jason is like I hear him on everything. I mean that voice. I joke around, but I'm like I'd let him be the voice of my GPS. If he
Hell
wanted
yeah.
to. I was like it's just the best voice in the world. It's so good, and he just nails that. Yeah, but it was great. Yeah, he came in and he played a lot of guitar, brought the red eye, and
Ugh,
made us all nervous with it. He was going out to pick up some cupcakes for Mercy on his way back, and I'm like, "What are you gonna do with the guitar when you go to Kroger?" He's like, "I just put it in the trunk." I'm like, "You kidding me? Do you
dude,
want me to come stand guard over the guitar?"
did you get to mess with it?
Well, no, I won't touch it. He's
No.
offered over at the house before, and then he's like, "You want to play it?" I'm like, "No, I don't want near it."
Dude, that thing is insane, man.
I'm like,
Uh
it's a work of art and it's a museum piece, and I got no business
Absolutely.
with my clunky playing. I got no business near it.
Garrison Starr. Now, I never heard of her until this record. Why do the like duet with her instead of just being kind of like a backing vocals kind of thing?
Yeah, the characters in the song set it up. A lot of the
Yeah.
songs there when I have buddies on it, I want to hear more of them, so I would gladly work in some of these songs if there was a reason to do
Yeah.
back and forth. But Garrison specifically, I we go way back because she's from Memphis originally, and and I've just known her for years. She moved out to LA a long, long time ago, and we hadn't stayed in touch that much. But I ran into her, and I was just sort of thinking about the record, and I was like, because that song was, I was kind of going for like if it was like 1987, and it was some sort of, you're in one of those places you don't know where the radio station's coming from. I just wanted some sort of late night driving, like
Sure.
lost FM weird song, and and Garrison just has that pristine voice. It's got grit to it, it has all that stuff, but it's also got a pop thing to it that's
Mm.
just undeniably powerful. So I was like, oh, she'd be great for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was gracious enough. Yeah, I've sounded before, but it's just like all instruments for the most part. When people consider something expressive, it's always like a sax or something. How emotive that is. It's because it's close to the human voice. They're approximating the human voice, and
Mm.
so if I happen to know someone that has this singular instrument that you can't reproduce, that you
Sure.
can't, you can't run into Guitar Center and get Garrison Starr's
Right.
voice and drop slap it on your record. It's like, why wouldn't I, uh, uh, beg my friends to be,
Sure.
to be instruments on the record. Like, and so, but again, I always try to find a place that fits for them. I'm gonna have a couple guests. It looks like on this one, I don't know if I could say too much yet,
Yeah.
but yeah, but it's looking like I'm gonna have a couple of friends that haven't been on your records. That's the other thing too. It's like I don't want to keep um, bothering like John Snodgrass, whose voice is great with mine,
Oh yeah.
and Isbell, and of course, and then Kim Richardson, who sang. She's a Memphis sort of a country singer, pop singer, and she's all the harmonies on like my first three records.
Mm.
If you hear a female harmony, that's her. She's great. But again, I don't want to keep bothering the same people.
Right.
I like to pester somebody new each record.
Right. Um, I was wondering. So listening to "When I Go, I Ghost," it's kind of like um, it's happy-ish at the beginning. First few tracks gets a little dark down there in the middle,
Oh, gets
and
yeah,
then
very dark.
kind of
Yeah.
brings it back to a more of a happy ending at the end. So who comes up with that? Who figures out the track list and things like that when you're doing an
Oh, yeah,
album?
that's always me. Yeah.
That's you? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have that planned.
Well, not in the writing, no, yeah, not at all. Like, and my albums are never like concept albums. I'm never like
Mm,
because it takes so long between records that these things, the songs stack up, and and so I just sort of find a batch that sort of seems kindred or something, and so then I'll be like, okay, I can see this making a record, but then when you go in, I always go in. I've done all the work as far as I can do. It's fully arranged in my head, but I don't give the musicians demos ahead of time. If I
okay.
do, maybe 2 days ahead. I just don't want them getting too attached because I surround myself with like just killer musicians, and these are guys that can hear a tune, they'll chart it out, and those have it. And
Mm,
so if I give them too many sonic ideas or things like that, it can uh I think it can hinder because like there's never
sure.
I have I have ideas of how even the bass line would go in my head, but I'm never going to tell somebody like Robbie Crowell, oh, I think the bass is like this, because they're always going to play something better.
Yeah.
It's just so I get people in for their innate skills, and I try to stay the hell out of the way. But the arrangements themselves, there's never a time where they're going to come in. They're going to if this should be like, oh, this should be a middle eight here, or this should be longer. The songs fully work by the time I hand them to them. And
Gotcha.
so it can only get better from there. There can only be more nuance added. Um, yeah.
How do you how do you go about writing a song? Is it lyrics and then music, or is it music then lyrics, or a mixture
Yeah,
of
that's
both?
the old ubiquitous question. I mean, it's a little bit simplifying it to say it's lyrics first. It is primarily lyric driven, it's story driven. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not the kind of person that's like, da 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 da. Da. Oh, let me come up with some lyrics for that.
Yeah.
I'm not a because my voice is what it is. It's it's fine, but it's a limited. I don't have a like a pop singer voice or anything like that. And most of my heroes aren't very uh, oriented like that. Very, I have a very linear way of doing melodies. Usually, the way I would say a thing is the way I would sing a thing, and so
Mm,
the lyrics themselves tend to they have music in them. They tend to suggest it. If you repeat just pull a line out of a book and just say it like 10 times over and over and over, and you'll hear the music in it. Even just a sentence like, you'll hear the music in it. You'll hear the music in it. Your voice is raising up and down there.
yeah.
You'll hear the music in it, and so that suggests a melody. You'll hear the music in it.
Mm,
It suggests a cadence. Now I don't always strictly go with that, and I know how to craft a hook as juxtaposed with you set a thing up and then you diverge from it. There's there's more to it than that. But
right.
in general, I my songs are, yeah, usually very lyric driven, and then I'll start messing with them, and the music itself is generative. Like I'll have I'm like, okay, this works with this. but musically it needs to go here now, or it needs to do this. And so then sometimes that will, I will go back in and change lyrics and things like that, or edit
Hmm.
things around. And um, I tend to overwrite. I'll write a few verses for every verse you've ever heard, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll just write a whole song, and then at the end of that song, I'll be like, oh, it'll suggest something else, and I'm like, oh, okay, and I'll write that song, um, and then I'm like, oh, it'll suggest something else, and then that third song is the song you hear. Sometimes it's
Wow.
like
Okay.
so because it's yeah, I just don't. I'm not that precious with the shit. I don't think I have anything particular. I don't have any wisdom to impart. I have, nothing that I could sit down and be like, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to tell this story, and it's going to be uh, a truth, or a universal truth. But as I'm writing, I'll you know, I'll just be intuiting my way to things, and I'll be like, oh, that's true. That's
Okay.
true. That rings true to me. And then I'll find ways to set that up and support it. Then some of the bag of tricks come out, like some of the rhetoric and ways to reinforce it, way to set up a payoff.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. It's fun, but it's very. I teach uh, guitar lessons sometimes, and sometimes I'll give songwriting lessons. But it's such a nebulous way I do it,
Right.
and so I usually, I'll find out. I'll listen to something somebody's working on. I can be like, I can help you. I can recognize maybe what you don't hear that's unique in your own stuff, and then show you how to support that, and how to score it musically, how to or how to set the music almost ironically against what you're saying,
Mm.
to undercut what you're saying. I can show people how to do things like that, but the ABCs of like songwriting, I think they're really um, different for a lot of people. Um, I don't write autobiographically. Like a lot of people expect, I probably have more of a career if I did, because people are like, oh, singer songwriter with guitar. This is going
Right.
to be about his life, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, I'm all the characters, but it's not about. I'm writing stories and stuff, so I
Yeah.
try to fashion what I feel and what I've gone through or what I'm going through, and I try to turn it into something as opposed to just document it. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not writing a diary. Who gives a shit? If I don't give a shit. Let's put it like that. I don't give a
Right.
shit. I'm not remotely interested in myself like that. That doesn't, now what I find, what I can discover, what I can create, that's fascinating to me, because it's open ended, and it's just there for uh, you find it by doing it, and then that's fun.
Yeah.
It's like this. I don't. It doesn't take the ego out of things, because my choices that are being made in the writing are still very indicative of what's important to me,
Yeah.
and what I want, but it's not a reflection on like me. What people consider
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I think so. You write these stories, but you do have a song that always stood out to me when it came. It's only a record or so back. Another Nightmare in America.
Mhm.
Like that's very much a specific thing that you're writing about.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, sometimes I will. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not.
I guess it's a
I'll
story.
do topical things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but again, that's about racist police brutality.
Right.
And again, so it was post Ferguson. Things were on fire. It was infuriating. Um, it was uh, George Floyd and all that. And so
Right.
there's this, fury, but there's that story, is not mine as a fucking, Irish Southerner, exactly to tell. And so the the full force of the fury is not mine to be held righteously, uh,
Yeah.
because it's not. I don't, have to teach my white son, how to, not be killed by the police. It's
Yeah.
and so, And so yeah, that one was one where I had to, like I tell the story from the eyes of a racist cop,
Yeah.
and then but then it's that one's weird because it pulls out and it goes to bigger things, and so there's like some poetic lines, and it's like there's no way a fucking dirtbag racist cop is good, so it has to pull out, and it has to be this sort of almost malevolent narrator, almost it's almost above this scenario too, so that one
Sure.
was a little weird, but yeah, that, and then you get in, and that one specifically I knew that I wanted to make it incredibly catchy, so you are tempted to not listen to the lyrics and just sort of bop along.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, how do you do that, um, and make sure they have to listen to lyrics? And so like uh, the the first two words in the song is uppity.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's no music. And so as soon as you hear that, it's like, whoa, what the what the fuck is
Yeah.
happening here? And then it goes along. And so yeah, it was a bit of a sonic experiment too. I don't know if I fully pulled it off, but it's yeah, it's I can't wait for that song not to be pertinent, or for it not to
Relevant.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
or not to be relevant.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately fucking evergreen. Um,
Yeah.
but that anger and that disgust that I felt has been articulated by people of color so much better, and in so many other ways. And so if I was going to vent my rage, it had to be come from a certain angle, and
Right.
for the song to even have a reason to exist.
Right.
Why? I mean, you're not going to uh, you know, Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit. You're not going to find more power or more relevance in something like that.
Yeah.
And so, but I still was furious and am furious. And yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. So and I'll do that sometimes. But like a lot of the things that I get, like my protest stuff, like I may or may not cut that Sultana song I've had around for years and years and years. It's a 10-verse shipwreck ballad about this,
Hmm.
but it's something that I wanted to write because I saw the way to write it. That was one that when I read that story, I had never heard of this thing that happened, and it was right after the Civil War. This ship, they're getting the government's paying the steamboat captains to get the POWs, the Union POWs, back up north, but they're not. There's no oversight. They're just paying people like, okay, just bring them back. And
Sure.
so, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, uh, here's a story, a Civil War story, a true story that I can tell in ballad form that is going to be I'm going to be it's not north or south, is it's not a north or south thing. It's a unchecked capitalism. It's a pure greed thing where
Right.
the railroad captain, even though he knew something was wrong with the boiler, shoved 2,300 and plus 28, about 2,800 people on a steamboat supposed to have 350 people because he wanted the money from the
Right.
government for each head. And it killed more people than half the battles of the Civil War. And it's just this story that is a it's not known widely about America, and it's about America. It's so about America. It's
Sure.
so about, and then it's all my complaints about how we will all this jingoistic shit to get you to sign up, and we'll send you off to war, and we are not going to take care of you when you come back.
Right.
You are fucked. you know Good luck
Yeah.
getting your VA benefits. Good luck. And so it deals with all that. It tells the story, and then it sums it up with that. And I was like, okay, this is a way to so if I do stuff that is very much me, the things that anger me and stuff like that, I try to find ways to put it in stories. Usually it's fictional, but that one was just historically.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap. And I've never cut it. It just never fit on a record. And so the idea for this record that I'm working on now is actually a lot of the songs that never fit anywhere. It was like some of the outliers. So I think I'm gonna cut that one. I'm not certain. We haven't done it
Yeah.
yet. Um, but yeah. Anyway, sorry again.
No, please. No, this is
I tend to
awesome.
run off on tangents.
That's actually something I was going to ask. Like, do you have any songs that you've recorded and then realized, no, I don't, it doesn't fit. Let's take it off. And it never made it to the record. But it's recorded, like
Yeah,
fully mixed, like done.
there's probably a few sitting around somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, I can think of a couple. But yeah, uh, there was one, but then I recut it later for something. What was that? I'm blanking. Yeah, my brains these days, I've run out of RAM, so I
Yeah.
have to, offload things. Offload's not a computer word, but I have to get rid of stuff to add new stuff.
Well, I know you had the three that you released after When I Go, I Ghost came out.
Mhm.
Were
That
those
was no, those were
made for the
mainly
record or?
well, those were just sort of the problem you run into when you do longer records, which a lot of my records have been. I've only done one record that's like fits on vinyl properly.
Mm,
Um, you have to make considerations of what's actually going to fit on the vinyl. After a certain number of minutes per side, you start losing bass. Just you know, the bass grooves are deeper, so they take up.
right.
It's just the way the medium works. And so since they've had the vinyl resurgence and most people listen to it on that, so that's a consideration. But I wouldn't say most people listen to it. Most people listen to it, digitally on the thing.
Yeah, streaming.
And and so I cut all those songs because they all sort of felt kindred in a way, um, in my loose idea of kindred. And then I noticed as we were going along, those three tracks, that's what it would have it had to take off to make the record fit.
Mm.
And then I was like, oh, these can kind of work. But the sort of the reason those came off, the Honeycomb Home or whatever is a bit psychotic, and
I love that song, dude.
there was already quite a bit of psychotic stuff on the record. And then the other two, the Gatlinburg and Son of Mine was a really actually hard choice. That's about my son. And it's
Yeah.
about and it was included on the record because there was some songs about mental health and some things that happen, and that's what that song's about. Is my son's like super great and brilliant, and he got my dark turn of mind,
Mm.
and that was like, but it's a upbeat positive song about that. It's basically it's like you're not gonna have to do this alone. Here's I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you some tricks. I got you. Um, and so it seemed it worked in the context of the record, and and then it just if we pulled the other ones off and just left that, it was a glaring. If I pull like Gatlinburg, which is a little more rootsy,
Mm-hmm.
and it just left that as a glaring sort of a rootsy thing that was just sitting there. Um, and yeah, that one was a hard one to pull off the thing. But the label's like, we'll just put those three out, sort of like extra things, and they ended up calling it an EP or whatever. But
Yeah.
but yeah, those were cut for the record. And
Gotcha.
I had them in working order where they were going to be on the record and everything. So yeah, and so actually when I pulled them, there were a couple songs that I had to move around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I consider album order. Maybe it's just you know my age and the generation I came from. Album an album how it moves is important to me.
You still think
Um,
about each side, right?
yeah, that is a new one I had to do because I didn't do that for the first couple records because it wasn't the big vinyl craze.
Right.
You just thought hell, you were thinking about CDs. You're like, oh, let's put everything on here.
Yeah.
But you were still thinking about how does it work and is it too long and and I usually don't have songs that are very long in general unless there's a reason for it.
So, what about album covers? Because you've got a couple that are interesting. The Hell You Say, You in the Bathtub. How'd that come
Yeah,
about? Do you
I
even
don't even
remember?
I don't even know that was so long ago. I mean, I know that yeah, I just wanted it look something to look like the uh a night had gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um so yeah, I think that was where that came from. But yeah, somebody pointed out one time they're like, you have more than one record where you're just laying down on the front. And I was
Yeah,
just like,
you do.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
well that was definitely the No Hit Wonder was a nod to originally it was gonna I wanted to sort of cross boots like in people's face, sort of like that thing, the relaxing, and that was a nod to the old John Prine Pink Cadillac's cover where he's in the Cadillac with the boots, like he's kicked
Okay.
back and And I knew I wanted that. I was like, you know what? Instead, I'm just gonna like sprawl out, and except for I'm gonna turn my head like I'm asleep. I'm like just
Yeah.
sleeping on my own record kickback. That's where that one came from. Yeah, sometimes I I think it through, and then sometimes I just like audio. So it's like screw it, just get a busted picture of my face and it's fine.
Yeah. Simple.
I did throw
Uh,
the. I wanted the back cover to be the front cover, but the Bloodshot used to like to pick one thing because they don't care about it. Like I've always gone with labels that are like basically contractually will put out whatever the fuck I hand them.
right.
I never want a label that's like too involved. With the artistic side. But every once in a while, Bloodshot would pick one little thing that like a font or something, and they would just be like,
Sure.
and so they just wanted a picture of me on the front, and so I was trying to get away with the picture that's on the back of Audios is me at one on some horse, and me and horses don't have good histories, and you can see it starting right there. I'm like this, and it looks like I'm trying to be tough, but if you look closer, it's like I'm horrified that I'm on this
I'll have to look
horse.
at it. I've got
Yeah,
the record over there.
that's
Um,
me.
yeah.
When I was like a kid, and I wanted that to be the cover, and I was like, "It's me." You said you wanted me on the record, but they didn't. They didn't want that, so I was like, "Okay, screw it."
Yeah. Um, Something that I've always had trouble doing is, I guess, describing your music to people because
Good.
it's genreless
Yeah,
essentially, right?
yeah. That's the idea.
So, but does that make it hard then to market you? I
Very
guess.
much,
Yeah.
very much. Yeah, and it's I would just tend to call it folk music, but that's because it's I want it to be functional. The songs are meant to be useful.
Hmm.
But it's the broadest damn definition of folk music you ever heard. There's not a lot
Yeah.
of you know like on that last record, there's synths and there's like metal guitar riffs in places, and there's like it's all over the place, and that's just sort of either boredom, perversity, or the song really needing it.
Mm.
Sometimes the songs have been around so much that I've got to sort of electroshock them back to me being interested in them, so I will do something unexpected with the arrangement.
Yeah.
Usually it's what I'm hearing, like that last record, like it's closest I've ever gotten to the sounds in my head.
Okay.
We didn't get it all, but some of them nailed it, and I was just like, okay, all right. So that was fun, but then it gets too big. Some of the themes were big on the last record, so it's fine to get. And the instruments were still instrument size. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I don't want an acoustic guitar that sounds like a wall of guitars. It's like I want an acoustic guitar. So I want everything human size. And so, but that as you start layering it and you get these great players, it's like, oh shit, this song's getting kind of epic. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, I don't know that if the theme's not epic, it's like that rub, you know, it doesn't always have to be scored exactly
Right.
to it. Sometimes you can set it ironically, but I try in general when they're sort of intimate, subtle songs to go with like an intimate production style. So I'm gonna head down here to the garage while we do this. If
Yeah.
that's all right.
Absolutely.
I just realized I'm like, oh, I'm on the phone instead of the computer. The computer wasn't working, so I'm portable.
So, speaking of the last record, you had a song, "One Happy New Year."
Hmm.
When you were out touring, I saw you a few times for that before that record came out. I remember you. You were saying a few times you'd say like you were thinking of putting like a countdown in there.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
remember this?
I
Yeah. What
did.
what
Yeah.
what happened with that? There was no
Uh, it,
countdown.
it was just two on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
reason why I was bringing the countdown up because it was oh yeah, I was asking if people count down from 10
Yeah.
or they count down from like 12, like because yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just like, no, it
Yeah.
was a little too. There's a way to get away with that kind of kitsch, but you need to be like the Cars or something. Yeah, I don't
Sure.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember finally putting the record on when it came out and listening to the song, and I was like, "There's no countdown in there. I wonder what happened." So
Yeah.
I'm glad I
Also,
finally
it was
got to
just, I
ask.
mean, again, the other thing is like Isbell happened because it's like, he's just, as we were just holding out those last notes, I was like, oh shit, it just needs to end like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So Survivor Blues. It's got the two versions. Any other songs you've ever thought of doing the kind of multiple versions of? The
Yeah,
softer, the harder?
sometimes it occurs to me to do that with something. Then eventually I probably will. When I finally do the live record, people kind of been asking for a long time.
Yes.
I will probably do. I want to do it like I'll probably do a double record is what the idea is eventually, and some of it at least. Some of it will be just me and the acoustic because that's so volatile. But also, people think they want that, but you don't. It's like if you hear a bootleg of my live show, you throw it out of your car because it's like, why is he rushing, dragging, screaming, whispering? It's something for the room, and it's how you work a room in a general way. And you present the song. You keep people on their toes. People don't need to be on their toes if they've already put the record on.
Right.
It's there's a different way to do a solo acoustic record, which I'll probably do it. But there's a great record, a Guy Clark record. It's called Keepers, and
Okay.
where he's sort of just revisiting his catalog. He may have cut it at Bluebird or something, but it sounds like he's in a little pub, very small thing with just great musicians play, but very stripped down. No drums or anything like that. Um, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I can revisit a lot of these songs that I made, really for one reason or another, made an eclectic sort of production styles that I can strip them down to just the bare thing, and just sort of be like, okay, it can stand this one. This song can stand alone like this. Oh, one of the roommates is home.
You, I've heard you change your live shows are way different than what your records are.
Oh yeah.
I've seen you change up your songs so many different times. Like I think the last show I saw you at Whitewater, you did a version of Crush. You had your keyboard out, and you did a crazy version of Crush that was. I recorded it. I've got it on my phone. It's fantastic, but it was weird. It was out there. It was just a random version of Crush.
Yeah, sometimes I just jump in and just as things just randomly occur to me, I'll do them. Yeah, because I like to. If I'm not sort of risking something, why should anybody else be interested? So,
Yeah.
and especially risking on the piano. I took that out. You probably saw the one tour where I took that out because I've been playing more during COVID. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, I'm kind of I'm proficient enough, in all 12 keys where I can just sort of do this. And I think about it. Well, I didn't learn my songs. So I didn't. What didn't didn't occur to me until I was on stage mid song playing piano is that it's different playing piano without singing. And then when you start singing and trying to remember words and add all this, it's just too many damn balls you're juggling.
Right.
And I was just like and so then my left hand would get touched by an anvil. It would get really stupid, and my piano playing would get dumb, and then I would just be lost. And so it was fun because it was dangerous and it led to interesting things sometimes. But I felt it was a little too self-indulgent until so the piano will come back out on the road once I've learned some of the songs.
Yeah. No, I think you
that's
were
mainly what I play here at the house. I don't touch guitar for long periods of time, and then
really. I think you were treating that. It kind of seemed like you were treating that show as just a fun, not even part of the tour kind of thing. Because I think it was literally the beginning of it. I have to go back and look. I've got it. I've got something written down, but yeah, it was all you were just up there, just having fun, trying different shit.
The Whitewater is just like it's home.
Yeah.
It's my favorite place to play in the country anyway.
Yeah.
But honestly, a lot of nights I'm like that. I'll just I always try to check myself if it feels like it's being self-indulgent. But if a crowd's willing to go with me being weird, I'm always down to.
Hell yeah.
Because that's for me is it can go fucking really wrong, but it can also be really magical. Like it can be special, and it's like, oh, this happened once, and it'll never happen again.
Right.
Yeah. And even I'm always changing in more subtle ways. But yes, but really dramatic stuff like that I don't always do that because I'm afraid it's going to be too self-indulgent.
Do you ever have people ever gotten, and maybe they've never told you or anything, but anybody gotten upset that they hear your record and then they come see a show and they're like, this isn't what I expected? No?
I've never had anybody be upset. I think nowadays, um, people are pretty aware that um, a, as recording gets relatively more accessible for people, um, you can't craft a record like you could back in the days when there was, I don't know, money involved,
Right.
money involved with music. Uh, but you can, you know, uh, you can make these, big sounding things because you have access to, I've got in my computer in there, I've got access to the entire London Philharmonic. I've got them
Right.
every note they could play it, every way they could attack it. I have it all in there. So if I wanted to do that, I could do that. Um, I don't think people expect to see that kind of thing when they come to a fucking folk club.
Sure.
I play 250 under caps. Um,
Right.
but yeah, but I have had people be like, oh, I prefer this when you do it live, instead of the record. I'm like, well, yeah, come see me live. It's like,
Yeah.
I if I had, or the other way, some people be like, I like that on the record. Yeah, I would have loved to hear that with the full band. I'm like, well, I do occasionally tour with it, but even then, it's still just a 3-piece. It's
Right.
just flat logistics. If I could tour with a fucking 8-piece crack band, man, I'd have my band fucking like James Brown's band. It would be fucking killer. I
I
just can't
think,
afford to pay people like that. It just doesn't,
yeah.
you know.
I think I've all the years that I've been seeing you, because I think I discovered you. I know the Hell You Say was out, but 12 Songs was not. So we're looking at probably 2005 ish is when I
Yeah,
discovered
sure.
you, and I don't think I've seen a show. I think I've seen one show that you've done with a band.
Mhm.
All the rest have just been you,
It's
which
mostly like that.
I prefer, honestly.
I like a band because it's fun. Because I was a guitar player first, and so I like to play guitar, and so you can only play one kind of guitar or
Yeah,
one particular kind of guitar when you're playing by yourself.
but
Um,
I feel like you're so. Is it difficult? Has anybody ever said it's difficult to kind of play with you sometimes, because you do kind of change it up and
yeah, well, when I have a band, I always make sure it's just bass and drums usually, and just I'll be playing guitar, and always tell them or ask them to. I'm like, you guys lock tempo wise. I'm going to, because I rush and drag. I'm like, I'm going to pull and I'm going to push against this beat. I'm like, and if you follow me, we'll be in a ditch. I'm
right.
like, if y'all establish it, I'm going to push and I'll drag behind it. I'm like, the only real thing that that they really need to watch is my dynamics, because when the song comes up and down, because I like to change that up a lot.
Yeah,
In general, um, though, when I have a band, I straighten the things out to where, because there's enough variation in the arrangements of the songs. Just because even when I'm playing solo, I get bored, and so like there's drop bars,
hmm,
there's kind of sneaky, intricate things happening in the arrangements anyway. Um, so when I do a band, we hit our marks or whatever, and then I'm like, and when I turn around to look at y'all, let's just fuck off. Let's just
yeah,
do whatever the hell. Let's listen to each other and just whatever. And then I'll turn back around the mic and we'll hit our mark and we'll go back into
yeah,
the other thing. And so I like to leave. It still leaves room for fun and improvisation. And when you only have 3 people, you can really improvise better. Because
yeah.
there's not all these things where everybody's got to hit their mark. You can. So that's great. But yeah, I'm I'm a sound man's nightmare with my whisper yell thing, and then I'm kind of a band nightmare too with my arrangements, and I have way too many fucking chords, and yeah, I've been called Cory Branan in the studio.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Um, yeah, I've had like session ringers being like, "What the hell are you doing with this part?" And but in my defense, eventually most of them are like, "Oh, yeah, this is logical. I can see the structure here."
Yeah.
But yeah, I like little surprising things. I'm a huge
Well,
Tom
hey,
Petty fan, and those Tom Petty songs sound very, very simple. But when
sure.
when you go to learn them, you're like, "Oh, why did he do that?" There, it's like that's interesting, and he's got these little things that keep excitement going for that three. I'm a fan of the 3 minute, 3.5 minute
Absolutely.
song, and to have that feel like you've taken somebody somewhere. There's some a little bit of wizardry involved in that, you know.
Well, I won't keep you too much longer. I do got a couple other things I wanted to ask about. One,
I got nowhere to be. Appreciate it.
um, inspirations. I know John Prine was a big one for you,
Huge.
and actually, I actually have only recently discovered John Prine. I'm talking like within the last few
Congratulations.
months. Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
I
I'm
wish I
loving
could go
it,
back and discover them again and go back into all of it. Oh, it's so
dude.
good.
I listened. I swear to God, I listened to it just over and over one night, in spite of ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That
that's one of the.
song is hilarious. I think it's fucking perfect, man. I love that song. I listen to it literally over and over and over again. But do you have? I was hoping you could maybe give me some, like, give me an album to listen to by John Prine that you think is the
Usually, the way
go-to.
when people are new to Pride, I just say get that Great Days. It's a compilation. So
Okay.
and it's just fantastic. You know, and
Okay.
it only goes up to a certain point. I don't think it has anything from like Fair and Square, any of his 2000s on, in which Fair and Square is a great record.
Okay.
That's a really good one. But yeah, I said you get in at Great Days,
Okay.
and then just go from there, and you really can't go wrong. It's great. And uh, John was a lot more restless than people give him credit for, because his songs are deceptively simple in a different way. Not necessarily musically arranged, because a lot of times he really did stick to not always, but he would stick to very unassuming arrangements. A lot of three
Mm.
chord things. But the way his stuff is deceptive is he really does lull you into relaxation with humor, and then there's something dark that he slips in, and
Yeah.
and it only gets in because the humor has brought your guard down, and
Who else?
it's a really really beautiful thing he does.
Who else is like that? Somebody like Randy Newman or somebody a similar kind of.
Yeah, Randy's a different thing. He's also a hero of mine. I'm a huge Randy
Oh,
Newman fan.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Randy Newman will do but his humor is always sardonic and barbed, and it's
Mm.
it's more of a satirical thing, and he's really good at the untrustworthy narrator, where
Right.
all of a sudden you're singing, and you people have this tendency to root for um who, to identify with the person that's singing the song. That's dangerous, Randy. Like
Mm.
his shit, all of a sudden, it's because he's some real pieces of shit. Some of his characters, and that's the whole point. And so, it's very sophisticated what he's doing a lot of times, and it just always amazes me that he does all this Disney stuff, and they let
Yeah,
him
I
do
know.
these kids movies, and I'm like, did you ever hear Good Old Boys?
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
like, did you ever hear any of his subversive '70s stuff? I mean, it's more, yeah, it's crazy. And then but he has a love for all the old American songbook and things like that, and a lot of the New Orleans stuff, especially the piano. So,
Mm.
and so sometimes he will be doing something that is not ironic. Um,
Right.
he's great, and he's still great. That Dark Matter record, even up to his last record, that Harps and Angels that he did on, I forget what that label was, but he's still fantastic, and still is smartest man in the room, and then he can just play a ballad. He's got one on that last one. It's uh, I think it's called Wandering Boy, and about his son, and it's
Mm.
just like, and it can just, oh, and there's one where his wife is dying, and she's telling the kids basically to look after him, like it's like,
Mm.
don't let him sleep in the chair at night, and if he wants his hold his, if he reaches out for you, hold his hand. She's like, I don't care if it embarrasses you. That kind of shit.
Ugh.
It's like, oh Jesus,
Dude. Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my God, yeah, he's really ruthless with your emotions.
You have one of those. You have "Don't Go" that just
Yeah, yeah, that
dude.
one.
It's probably genuinely it's probably my favorite song of yours.
Oh, really? Yeah, that
Yeah.
one's about my grandparents. And a little bit cast. I uh, put it back a little further historically. I mean, I think it seems like it's more like World War II. My
Right.
grandfather was in Korea, but
Right.
yeah, that was my mama. She was like all the personality in the family. She was like the best of us,
Dude.
and yeah, that's a bit of an homage to her. Yeah, and that's interesting. I never thought about that, but that is sort of like he's looking out for her. But yeah, in the song, she's sort of looking out for him because she knows
Man.
she's gonna leave. Yeah, yeah.
Dude,
That's That
It
was
gets
came
me,
out. That
dude.
was before the Randy Newman thing. So yeah, interesting. Maybe that was that why that song resonated with me too. The Randy Newman one. Um, yeah.
Last thing I've got. So I'm on Instagram today, and Ben Nichols puts out a video of a song that he was singing about a friend, I guess a friend of his that had passed, probably a friend of yours as well.
It's one of my best friends. Yeah, it's
Well, I
and he was the best friend of a lot of people. This Nick was he's very important to a lot of people. See, a lot of people hurting through the South right now.
I'm man, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Uh,
He mentioned that he was going into the studio with some people, and you were one of the people. I guess he's doing a solo record or something.
Yeah, we're heading down. I head down, I guess, Sunday night, and yeah, we're in all week over at Matt Ross Bank Studio, and Todd Dean's going to come in.
Oh hell yeah!
I'm sure Rick Stepp will come in on some keys if he's in town. So yeah, and it's actually, frankly, a very needed distraction. We're going to go up to Louisville next Saturday. This is all whatever, but and we're going to go up, for a celebration of life,
Hell yeah!
party to honor Nick. But yeah, we're all pretty shook up, and so and Nick was such a big music supporter, like a big lover of music. He'd travel everywhere to see things, and he was he loved Ben's music, and he loved my music. He was always very vocal about it, and so I need the distraction of working on Ben's record, but I told Ben, I'm like, this will be good to just work.
For
But
sure.
but it's kind of fitting for us to put our heads down and then make some music, since that was, how we met Nick, how we related. It's like it almost
Absolutely.
seems fitting as an homage to just get to doing the thing that, that he valued. Because sometimes, you do this, I always say somebody's if you see somebody on stage, singing or right, with songs or whatever the hell, their mother held them too much or didn't hold them enough. There's an inherently something off.
Yeah.
But to do it as a lifer like myself or Ben or something like that, um, you're either ego driven or you're really striving to make songs that are useful. And I know Ben does. That's my main goal, is to not make songs that point inward. I want them to be useful and point out and be able to be used in people's lives. And so you forget that it happens. You
Right.
forget, you feel you fucking useless. Like it's like if I went out and built a deck or something, I would feel much more useful to society. And so when you see people connect with music, and you meet people through it, but you see people using the songs, it's the best compliment. I mean, if there's ever uh, anybody that you're hesitant to, like, go up and say something to after a show or something, if their music meant something to you, I guarantee you, if they're an artist or whatever, that's what you say.
Yeah.
If you're worried about saying something, it's like that's what means the most to anybody that's, I believe, for me, that's in this for the right reason.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I've always I love music so much, man, and yours especially. But it always just, as much as I want to go and say that kind of stuff to you or Ben, who I've been listening to Lucero. Actually, Lucero's the how I discovered you. You
Oh
opened
yeah,
for them,
it
you
happens a
know.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You had opened for them, and actually, I was out of town at the time. I just graduated high school. This was 2005. I graduated high school. I went to California. This is where I'm from, and my friends went to a Lucero show while I was gone, and I guess you had opened for them, and one of them bought your CD. And when I got back, the first thing they did was, "You've got to listen to this guy. I think you'll dig him." And they popped that CD in, and Miss Ferguson, first track,
Mhm.
I was hooked from literally the first track. Um, but no, I always do. I always want to go and just say, like, you guys, your music means so much to me. It's gotten me through so much, and I'm sure it has for tons and tons of people, man. So doing this, you have no idea how awesome this is for you to do this with me.
Oh no, I'm happy to, man. Yeah, I don't have anything going on. I like shooting the shit about music too. It's like that's the only thing I feel well, and mainly my music is the only thing I feel qualified to
Right.
just jaw about. But yeah, I mean, obviously music is has been there for me like that, and so
Yeah.
I like talking about it. I mean, it's one of the only glue that holds this this thing that I think of as a self, which I don't really believe I have a self. I'm just this conglomeration of stories I tell myself at any given moment. But music is a consistent through line, and creating music is a consistent, reliable joy. For all the hassle, it's always a pure joy. And so, yeah, I like shooting
Yeah.
shit about it anytime.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll let you go. I appreciate everything, man.
Hey, thank
Um,
you.
and I can't wait to see you out. Are you touring anytime soon, or are you just sticking to
No, I
the
don't.
studio?
Mainly the studio. I mean, I've got a couple fly dates, but nothing extensive right now. There's a couple things in the works. Um, we might be announcing a couple shows for the end of the year, some special ones, but no huge tours coming up at the moment. But
Okay.
that'll have to change just out of necessity. I got to
Yeah,
got to keep the
absolutely.
lights on around the joint.
Absolutely. All right, Corey. Well, I appreciate you hanging with me, man, and we'll see you
Thanks so
next
much,
time,
Jake.
bud.
All the best. Cheers.